Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be taking a look around Christmas time as another storm is going to drop down from the Midwest and bring down Arctic air, and then a low pressure will form along that Arctic boundary. Now right now we have the GFS model up, and right now you have a clipper system coming down from Canada that will affect the Northeast later tomorrow. It's going to be a nuisance of a storm, which means it's not going to really affect any traveling. Now if we fast forward here to a couple slides here, you can see the clipper system really dissipates, and only thing that will affect is the Great Lakes, causing more lake effect snow to come off the lakes. Now if you look into the Midwest, you see you have a low pressure system sitting in almost on the border of South Dakota, North Dakota, and Minnesota. On the northern and western side of this storm, you will have a pretty good amount of snowfall here. Now earlier, 2 days ago, the models were showing the low pressure system in the southern parts of Minnesota and on the border of Iowa and Minnesota. So this area of snow dropped south, and it would have been right in here, causing major impacts to the Midwest. But recently, the models have been taking this more and more north, so it'll be more of a Canadian snowstorm. Now, don't disregard this snowstorm. This is still going to have some impacts in parts of the Midwest, as shown here. Just instead of the storm skyrocketing out into the northern parts of Minnesota, it tries to stay in the central part of Minnesota here. And it tries to get more precip on the southern side for Iowa. This is where the most uncertainty is right now. Will this cold Arctic air get there in time to be all snow, mixed, or even just plain old rain? Now if we fast forward here, you can see that the precipitation sphere blossoms pretty much because it starts to interact with the Arctic front, and more precipitation has expanded. Almost all of Minnesota is in snow, and the eastern parts of North and South Dakota is in all snow. Anywhere to the west and north of the system will be all snow pretty much, because you have this cold Arctic air coming down from Canada, and it will be all snow on that side. The next side, the storm makes its way to the northeast, and as it does, it brings a pretty good amount of precipitation along with it. Now since you have an Arctic front on the back of this will change from rain to probably even the parts of the south to possibly bring heavy snowfall. Now as you take a look here, Tennessee is almost all snow here, surprisingly, at least shown by the GFS. And even into parts of northern Alabama, and in a moment here, even into northern Georgia here. On this slide, you can see it starts to make its way into northern Georgia, but it won't stick. Whatever will come down, it will be a little bit too warm, and nothing will stick. Now, if you go up to the north here, in West Virginia and parts of the border of Tennessee and North Carolina, where you have higher terrain, it will most likely change to snow. If you take a look here in the GFS, this is a heavy band of precipitation on the backside, at least in western Pennsylvania, eastern parts of Ohio, and even into West Virginia. On the next slide here, that cold air interacts with the system even more and brings heavy snow for parts of the Great Lakes, again western and central Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and now making its way into the parts of Virginia mountains. And on the next slide, this pretty much starts to wrap up, at least for that part of the area. But if you look into upstate New York and central upstate New York, it starts to get into heavy snow. And anywhere on the coast will pretty much see almost all rain event, from coastal Maine all the way down to Boston, Long Island, Connecticut, and even into some parts of New Jersey. Now the question is, will there be enough cold air to at least see some flakes mix in? That is always a possibility here. But at least on the GFS, it wants to take out the precip just in time where you won't see any snow, at least on the coast of Long Island. Maybe you'll see some flakes in New Jersey, but nothing crazy, unlike New York, upstate New York. Now if we take a look at the snow totals real quick, at least shown by the GFS here, you can see that it wants to drop a couple inches here. A widespread 1 to 3 inches from South Dakota, northern parts of Iowa, western parts of Wisconsin, and an upper peninsula of Michigan, back up to Minnesota. And then a 3+ range is locked up into central and eastern parts of Minnesota and northern parts of Wisconsin. This will not be a really major snow event, so it won't really impact travel unless you're north of Minnesota and even on the border of Minnesota and Canada. Now if we take a look at the snowfall totals from the Canadian model here, it has a more bullish look on the snow totals, but that's expected from the Canadian that always has more bullish snowfall totals that stretches all the way down through parts of southern Indiana here. It has a big 4-inch range snowfall from even almost into western parts of Minnesota, more into Wisconsin, and even into the UP of Michigan here. Now, if we take a look for the snow totals in the eastern part of the U.S. and even into southern parts of the U.S., this is what the GFS spits out here. Anywhere in the lakes could see up to 8 inches anywhere in this area because you will have lake effect snow going on with the system, and then anywhere in the mountains could see up to a foot as well. Now, in eastern Ohio, all the way down into West Virginia and parts of Kentucky, and on the border of North Carolina and Tennessee, because due to the higher elevation, you'll have more cold air locked up in there and you'll have more snow. Now, it all depends how heavy will it come down and how quick will the changeover be. The NAM wants to spit out around the same thing as the GFS, but this isn't far enough, but it looks almost in pair with the GFS here, but maybe a little heavier in snow totals and more widespread. Now, if we take a look at the European here, this shows almost identical look to the GFS, but it has the snow field making it a little farther south into Iowa, causing more snow to be shown, and then the low pressure system rides up into upstate New York, but there's less snow on the backside there for upstate New York. Not like you need it anymore, just like Binghamton actually got 40 inches from Winterstorm Gale, so they really don't need it. But the European wants to give Erie, Pennsylvania almost 15 inches of snow, and then in the mountains of West Virginia almost up to a foot, and then upper Wisconsin could see up to a foot of snow, and then the UP a foot. The National Weather Service, in a moment you'll see my forecast here. It's almost in pair with mine. You have banding up into the upper peninsula of Michigan, which could see close to a foot of snow if the conditions are right, but I give that part of the area 6 to 12 inches due to the lake effect snow. Now, if you look into the east right now, you only have an inch of snow shown because it's not far enough out, and that's where the greatest uncertainty is right now. If you look at my map right now in the light blue, it's coating to an inch. That stretches from all the way into Montana, into South Dakota, and Minnesota and Wisconsin. This 1 to 3 here is in a little darker blue. 1 to 3 that stretches from North Dakota, Minnesota, and into northern parts of Wisconsin and the upper peninsula of Michigan. This dark blue could see the best chance to see 4 to 8 inches that stretch from North Dakota, northern part of North Dakota, northern part of Minnesota, and also northern parts of Wisconsin and upper peninsula here. Now, if we zoom in a little here, this purple, which is the lake effect snow, could see close to 12 inches if the conditions are right. This is a little too far out to possibly show exact totals for that area, but that area could see close to a foot of snow. Now, this is a little too early to show for the eastern part of the U.S., but anywhere in this pink color sees the best chance to see accumulating snow on the backside of the system that stretches all the way up from northern parts of New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, Pennsylvania, eastern parts of Ohio, and even into far south as northern Georgia if the conditions are right, but Tennessee, North Carolina, back up to West Virginia and Virginia, and even into parts of Maryland. I hope you all have a great Christmas and have a great day.